For your first feature directorial, you did like a very small figure in American culture,
Sure.
Mr. J.D. Salinger.
Mhm.
I mean, I almost don't have to ask why, but please tell me what draws you to someone like him as a long time writer, by the way.
Sure,
Former actor,
sure.
long-time writer,
Sure.
now director.
Well, I'd read a biography on him for fun, and about halfway through it, I just thought, wow, the story of him writing Catcher in the Rye, that would make an amazing movie. It's a really powerful, beautiful, emotional journey. And then at the same time, I was able to tell the story of not just J.D. Salinger, but of just the journey of a writer and what writers go through and what artists go through. And there's so many things he went through that's so universal to so many writers, including myself, that have been through. And so I thought it was what a neat way to dramatize the creative process while at the same time telling this really amazing and dramatic story of his journey.
I'm always curious when you have a time period like this, do you laser in on that emotional, the artist and the man, but it's so easy probably to be seduced by the period, clothes and rituals and cars and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Is there any, how did you balance that, or did you lean in more on one versus the
Well,
other?
for me in this particular story, what was important was that the era looked believable and real, that we were living in that era, but I didn't want it to be a sort of essay on the era, because to me the story is timeless. And that what he goes through as an artist is, I think, a timeless journey that could happen in any time period. So I wanted to be true to the period, but at the same time, not fetishize it.
You have an incredible cast. Nick Hoult is playing Mr. Salinger. Kevin Spacey's in this movie. Sarah Paulson, who has had the year of years in this movie.
Yeah.
Tell me about gathering that group of actors. And I mean, is it intimidating directing Kevin Spacey?
Well, I'd done a movie with Kevin before, the movie Recount that I'd written. And I had a terrific relationship with Kevin on that movie. So it actually wasn't intimidating. I actually got along with him great. And he's a stage actor at heart. And I was a stage actor for the first 15 years of my life in the arts. So I think stage actors have a certain kind of dialogue with each other, and we got along great.
What was your big takeaways? And by the way, do you want to do it again?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it, and I definitely want to do it again, but it is very challenging. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done creatively, and the most rewarding thing I've ever done creatively. So I loved being in charge. I loved being the person ultimately making the decisions. I feel like I've been the vice president on most of my career, and it was nice getting to sit in that chair.
Well said,
yeah, although I don't know if that's the right metaphor for our times, but regardless, it just seemed to me that it was just great getting to be in charge of a company. And it's just really hard, on an independent film with your budget, just getting everything done in the amount of time you have, and you just got to make it work.
How did you work with Nick? And I'm sure speaking of intimidation, that's big shoes to fill. Did he go and research for 16 months, or did you guys just wing it and what's on the page?
No, Nick immersed himself into it. I mean, Nick Hoult is an amazing guy and an amazing actor, and I just had a wonderful experience. It'll be one of the great collaborations I've ever had is working with Nick Hoult. I felt like he was my partner on the project and that we were in this together. And the man just did everything. He knew everything about Salinger. He learned yoga, he learned, meditation.
Salinger was deep into yoga?
Yeah, he became so. As part of his post-war recovery was he got into Vedanta Hinduism, and that becomes a big part of the story in the film. So Nick learned to dance. Took dance classes because J.D. Salinger was a great dancer. Who knew?
Tom Ford didn't make him do that on a single man?
I guess not. So what he did for the part was truly spectacular.
Not to put you on the spot, but do you think it's a performance that might go the distance next year?
I hope so. I mean, I think he's wonderful in it. I think Kevin Spacey's wonderful in it. It's a different side of Kevin than you normally see. Well, it's really tender. It's the opposite of House of Cards. He's like this tender mentor who's tough too at times, and Nick just captures this really staggering journey emotionally that this character goes through, and I think Nick just nailed it.
Before I let you have to tell me your favorite Salinger and why.
It's not going to be the hippest answer.
I look forward
but
to
it's
that.
The Catcher in the Rye. I reread everything when I wrote the movie, And I loved a lot of the short stories. I mean, they're really great. And there's this one called "The Last Day of the Last Furlough." That's not such a famous short story, but it's really it's the last story, I believe, before he was shipped off to war. So there's something you could feel the sort of pathos in it. But there's something about Catcher in the Rye, this emotional truth, and it's very entertaining at the same time. And it's the only novel he wrote, full novel, and it still works like gangbusters even today.